Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of BassQuest. And if you're like a lot of people out there, myself included, the fall transition, especially the early part of it, going in from late summer to early fall, is a really difficult time sometimes to get bites. And we're working through a series right now on how to get bites from finicky schooling fish, especially during this time of year, because we got these summer schools that are still around this time of year and they're starting to get in motion and they're starting to get active, but they've been pressured all summer long, so it's difficult to get the bites. All right, so everyone's heard the saying, big baits catch big fish, and that's absolutely true. I love throwing big glide baits, 7, 8, 9, 10-inch glide baits. I like throwing big soft plastic baits like a mag draft, and those are all well and good, and there's a time and place for that. But during this time of the year when the fish are grouped up together, they're finicky, they're paying attention to what's being thrown at them, and they're constantly having things thrown at them. You're going to have to think outside the box. You're going to have to throw something a little bit different a lot of times in order to get the bite. Now, one of my favorite techniques to do that we're going to talk about today is small swim baits. I'm just going to put a couple in there for you. I got a bunch of really unique systems that I use when it comes to small finesse swim baits this time of year. And you're not going to want to miss out on it because, again, it's all about being different than the competition. There's a million other anglers out there that are fishing on these schools, and you want to throw something that's a little bit different, the fish haven't seen, vibrations that the fish haven't felt, in order to get the right amount of bites so you can weed through and get the big bites. Now, getting into this, we got to get into this downsizing mindset. So when I'm talking about throwing these things, we're not pulling out like a jerk bait rod with 10-pound test. We're dropping down to 7, 6-pound tests, maybe even 4 or 5-pound tests, and we're throwing it on spin rods. Now, a lot of guys will throw the BFS system now. It's become a big thing. I don't have any experience in that, so I can't tell you one way or another, but I love throwing this on spin rods, and I'm really specific. So here's one. I want you to think about this in your mind and like capture this in your mind. Go with a longer rod, 7.3, 7.6, 7.7, and go with a medium light action or a light action. This will give you a ton of distance. It's similar to throwing hair jigs up north. A lot of the hair jig rods that guys are really bombing out hair jigs. Going with that longer rod is important. And then pair it with a smaller reel. That'll give you the balance that you need and enable you to cast it all day long. So when I'm talking about size of reel, 2,500 size, 2,000 size, you're going with such small, even if you're doing braid, you're going 8-pound braid, 10-pound braid. So the line capacity is no longer an issue at all. And then you're wanting to do longer leaders. So you're using that light line, longer leaders. It's almost like top shotting. That way you can stretch out that fluorocarbon. Once you get all the goodie out of it, you can put another 40 yards on there. You can get another, 45 yards on there. Sometimes I'll even downsize a little bit more or make that leader a little bit shorter. But I like to have that long leader. I like to throw it basically on straight fluorocarbon. And that'll just, again, we're talking about getting the most bites possible. All right, so this is a big market. It's got a lot of options. Just about every manufacturer of soft plastics has smaller swim baits on the market, but there's key ones that are super important. We're going to start out with something that is probably the most well-known when it comes to small swim baits. I'm sure almost every one of you have thrown it. The 2.8 Kitech, and this is on a guppy head. That's probably one of my favorite heads to throw that on. Put a little bit of super glue in it, run it on a guppy head right there. It's got a great hook, but it's a light wire hook, so you can get away with it on these setups that we're talking about. Again, shad patterns. We're talking about summer to late summer to fall transition. These fish that I'm talking about are going to be keyed on a lot of bait fish and bait. All right. So now we're going to talk about these specialized swim baits versus standard swim baits when it comes to this. And it's different patterns, different techniques. So your standard is going to be like this one, the Kitech. And then here's another one, and it's Elusive Baits. That's one of their swim baits in a 3-inch, and that's also on the guppy head. I've also got one rigged up on a heavier Dirty Jigs head. I think that's just their standard swim bait head, but you can see it's also got the smaller hook on there. But that's no bling. This is going as natural as possible. You're firing into the school of bait fish, and you're looking just like one of the bait fish that's in there, right? So we're trying, sometimes if there's so much bait in the area, which is really common in the southeast where I'm from, my home lake's Chickamauga, if there's tons of bait and the fish are really just, they've got a bunch of it pushed to the top, sometimes you have to look different than the other bait fish over there. And go into something like a screw head, such as the Megabass Okashira head. That is a great way to look different, sound different than the other bait fish, but we're still talking about a super finesse package that's really unobtrusive. Now, my favorite bait when it comes to the Okashira head is the Megabass Hasdong shad. I think it pairs the best with it. Some guys throw a spark shad, the small spark shad. Some guys throw the 2.8 Kaite. And I tell you, I just think it overpowers the blade. The bait does not have the same action. The other thing that I'll throw this on is actually just a little zoom tiny fluke as well. So going with a straight tail version of it. You really want that blade to do the work in order to get the wobble and the action that you want. Another way that we can get different or look different than the other bait over there is to throw, you know, a color that doesn't quite mimic the other shad in the area. Go with those blues, go with those chartreuses, you know, that citrus kind of look to them, and then you can go ultra natural but still look a little bit different than the other bait fish so that the fish will target yours instead of the other 700,000 that are around it. The other thing I love to do, this is a two-parter right here, so I like to upsize a little bit. A lot of the bait this time of year is still really small, but you can take something like this 4-inch true bass and then either throw it the way it is and be a little bit bigger than the bait fish around you, or one of my favorite things to do is to put one of these little tail spinners on here. And I specifically like the Colorado blades better than the willow blades, and that's just a great way to do it. Another one that's on my list for the little bit bigger swim baits is going to be this Big Bite Baits Suicide Shad. That's another great bait. Again, it's got a lot of action to it, so you can move this thing around with a ton of different retrieves any time of the year and get bit on it. Those are my favorite baits, and I just encourage you to pick up several of these in order to try it. Again, we're talking shad patterns. These are easy to find. Pick them up, give them a shot. Especially the elusive baits. You need to look up, they're around Dale Hollow area. If you look up on their Facebook, you'll be able to try to utilize some of those there. All right, so when are we going to throw these things? And we'll decide on what we're going to throw as far as all these different types, depending on the weather conditions. So if it's overcast and windy outside, I'm probably not going to throw the most natural looking one on there. I'm going to go with an Okashira head. I'm going to go with one of those blades, a tail spinner blade, and I might go to a brighter color or a bait fish color that is solid instead of transparent like this one is right here. So you adjust depending on the conditions that you've got out there, because these fish are going to school no matter what, and so you got to have some options available so where you can change it out and make it happen depending on what's going on. Again, we already talked about it. The amount of bait is another one that's going to tell you which one of these baits you're going to pick up and utilize. And then water clarity is the other one that really speaks to me is, okay, so when we're talking about water clarity, we're obviously, if the water is really stained, we're probably not going to pick up a small swim bait, right? We're going to go with something different. But if the water is somewhat stained or a little bit more stained than normal, that's when we're going to want to go to some of these colors that really tend to stick out more and punch out in those kind of conditions. So this is not super difficult stuff. It's just stuff that nobody thinks to do. And I guess people think it's annoying or it's not the cool way to catch fish, but I'll tell you right now, I've caught giants doing this. Like, for most people, fish of a lifetime. I'm talking 7, 8, 9, 10 pounders. And it's just been a staple for me over the years. I know a lot of the guides around here, I can't tell you how many fish between 8 and 10 pounds have been caught by guides using tiny, tiny techniques like this, tiny swim baits and stuff. So it's something you really need to pay attention to. You really need to put it in your arsenal and give it a try. Almost any time of the year, especially from right now all the way until the spawn, I'm talking that entire time, there will always be one of these baits rigged up on my boat. Always. And just about every day when things get tough, the wheels come off, you can tie that on and go to town. You can catch fish. So, locations. This is, again, we talked about this being a series. Locations for these fish, all you got to do is go to my channel, and I'm going to actually tag it. I'll tag it like right up in here somewhere and at the end of the video. But I've got a playlist that's early fall finesse fishing. and it's going to have several videos on there. This is just one in the series. The next one, which is going to be somewhere over there, I believe, that video is going to be related to tail spinners, which is another absolute dynamite pattern. We've already talked about several of them. These are all ultra secret techniques that I've utilized to catch huge fish. So you want to pay attention, you want to watch this playlist, and I would recommend starting on that mapping one over here. That way you can understand where we're looking for this fish, exactly how this migration is going to work, and then start to get into these really specific niche techniques in order to catch the fish that you want. I really hope y'all are enjoying this. If you like the videos, like them. If you want to subscribe to the channel, it really helps me out. And as always, share it to your buddies. So I hope this week finds you out on the water, and I will catch you there.